The first gunshot echoed through the ICU like a thunderclap, rattling the glass doors and freezing every heartbeat inside the room. Monitors shrieked. A crash cart tipped over. And in the middle of it all, a man trained for war stood stunned, while the so-called civilian nurse he had mocked minutes earlier stepped forward without hesitation. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and never underestimating someone by their title, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that heroes don't always wear uniforms. It was just past midnight at St. Catherine's Medical Center in Norfolk, Virginia. The storm outside clawed against the hospital windows, lightning briefly illuminating the rows of fragile lives inside the intensive care unit. Commander Ryan Mercer, a decorated Navy SEAL leader with 20 years of service, stood rigidly at the foot of his injured lieutenant's bed. His presence alone seemed to command the room. Broad shoulders, hardened expression, a man used to giving orders and being obeyed. Across from him stood Nurse Hannah Brooks, adjusting an 4-line with steady hands. Her badge read Registered Nurse, but to Ryan, that word might as well have said civilian liability. He had made it clear earlier. He questioned her dosage adjustments. He challenged her authority to manage combat trauma. He had even muttered under his breath that battlefield medicine was no place for someone who had never worn a uniform. Hannah had heard every word. She said nothing. Hannah was not tall, not physically imposing. Her auburn hair was tied back in a practical bun, her eyes observant and calm. She had worked 15 years in trauma units across the United States, including during the chaos of Hurricane Harvey in Texas and the Las Vegas mass shooting aftermath. She had seen blood pool on floors and families collapse into grief. But she didn't wear medals. She wore scrubs. Ryan saw medals. The tension between them simmered like static electricity. Lieutenant Caleb Dawson lay unconscious, chest rising shallowly, a chest tube draining dark blood from a wound that had nearly claimed him overseas. Ryan trusted his team with his life. Trusting a hospital nurse with Caleb's was something else entirely. Then the power flickered. At first, everyone assumed it was the storm. Then the screaming started. Down the corridor, glass shattered. Heavy boots pounded against tile. A security alarm wailed. Someone shouted about armed intruders forcing their way through the emergency entrance. Norfolk had seen unrest before, but this was different. These men were organized. Intentional. Dangerous. Two masked figures burst into the ICU hallway, weapons raised, panic trailing behind them like smoke. They were desperate, cornered criminals fleeing a failed robbery nearby. The hospital had become their hiding place. Ryan's instincts ignited instantly. He scanned for exits, for cover, for threats. But he had no weapon. Hospital protocol had required him to leave it secured outside. He was a commander without command, a warrior stripped of his battlefield. One of the intruders grabbed a nurse near the medication station, pressing cold steel to her temple. Patients began to code as monitors flatlined from neglect. Chaos bloomed. And that was the moment Hannah moved. There was no trembling. No hesitation. She hit the emergency lockdown switch under the central desk, sealing the ICU wing doors. She shouted precise instructions to the staff, directing 2 nurses to manually ventilate critical patients, another to secure narcotics, another to shut off corridor lights to reduce visibility. Her voice cut through panic like a blade. Ryan stared. This was not the timid civilian he had dismissed. This was command presence. One intruder forced his way into Caleb's room, searching for a place to barricade. His wild eyes scanned for leverage, hostages, valuables, control. He saw Ryan first, then Hannah. He ordered them to step away from the bed. Hannah didn't. She positioned herself slightly in front of Caleb's ventilator, shielding the tubing with her body. She spoke calmly, her tone firm but not confrontational. She redirected the intruder's focus away from the patient, subtly guiding him toward the supply closet down the hall under the guise of better cover. She knew the layout intimately. She knew the angles, the blind spots. Ryan realized she was buying time. Security and local police were already responding, but minutes can feel like years when a life hangs by a thread. The second intruder attempted to break through the secondary ICU entrance but found it electronically sealed. Frustration escalated. A second gunshot fired into the ceiling, sending plaster raining down. Caleb's heart monitor spiked erratically. Hannah glanced at the screen and made a split-second decision. She ordered Ryan to apply pressure to a line that had dislodged in the chaos. He obeyed without thinking. Her authority was no longer questioned. It was needed. The intruder grew agitated, pacing, shouting. He grabbed a tray and hurled it across the room. Instruments clattered violently. Hannah's eyes never left him, but her hands adjusted medication with flawless precision. In one fluid motion, she activated a silent distress alarm hidden beneath the medication cart while maintaining eye contact with the gunman. It was subtle. Invisible. Ryan saw it. He saw strategy. He saw courage. Sirens grew louder outside. Flashing lights pierced through rain-streaked windows. The intruder realized time was running out. Desperation turned to recklessness. He lunged toward Caleb's bed, perhaps intending to use him as leverage. Hannah stepped directly between them. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't slow motion. It was instinct. Ryan moved simultaneously, tackling the intruder as he lost balance on spilled saline pooling on the floor. The weapon slid away, skidding under the bed. Hospital security, now reinforced by Norfolk police, stormed in seconds later and subdued both men. Silence returned in fragments. The storm still raged outside, but inside the ICU, something had shifted. Caleb's vitals stabilized. Staff regained composure. The crisis passed. Ryan stood there, chest heaving, rain-soaked boots leaving prints across sterile floors. He looked at Hannah, not as a civilian. Not as an outsider. But as a leader who had protected his man when he could not. In the quiet aftermath, while maintenance cleared debris and police took statements, Ryan approached her. There were no medals exchanged. No dramatic apologies. Just a simple nod, heavy with humility. He had judged her by uniform. She had proven herself by action. In the days that followed, Caleb recovered steadily. Word of the incident spread through the hospital and eventually reached Naval Command. Hannah declined interviews. She returned to 12-hour shifts, caring for strangers with the same steady dedication. But something inside Ryan changed permanently. He began advocating for integrated trauma simulations between military units and civilian hospitals. He invited Hannah to speak to his team about crisis leadership under pressure. He listened. Because bravery doesn't belong to one profession. It belongs to character. Before we reach the end of this story, I want to ask you something personal. If Hannah's courage and resilience moved you even a little, please engage with this video, like it, share it, and let others hear about the quiet heroes among us. And right now, comment the word respect if you believe true strength is shown through actions, not titles. Months later, Ryan visited St. Catherine's again, not for an emergency, but to deliver a plaque recognizing the ICU team's bravery. He handed it to Hannah in front of her colleagues. There was no mocking tone this time. Only gratitude. As he walked out into the Virginia sunlight, he glanced back through the glass doors. Inside stood a woman in simple scrubs, adjusting an IV, offering comfort to a frightened patient. No spotlight. No applause. Just quiet heroism. And perhaps that is the most powerful kind of all.